Hey guys, happy Monday. I hope you had a restful weekend. I am excited to just review some material with you. I'm not going to cover anything new right now. I want to just make sure that you've absolutely mastered everything we're going to do so that we can be ready for a fun art project that you're going to do next week. So I'm going to be going through and kind of doing a couple of the problems with you just so you can see what it's like. Oh, I'm so shiny. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. So you guys know the basic thing, the format, the amplitude always goes first. So the amplitude is 3, that goes in front. I have to see if it's sine or cosine. This one is cosine, so I write that down, cos. Put parentheses. My b is 2 pi over the period, but they don't give me the period here. They give me the frequency. The frequency is the b, so I just write in exactly what that is. So it's 7 pi over 3. And then I put an x next to it. And then is there a midline? The midline is 4. So I put positive, oops, no, that is not what I want to do. I put plus 4, and that's how you would submit it, okay? To do signs of trig functions, it's been a minute since we've done this. So remember the all students take calculus. I'm going to show you an image of that in a sec. And remember that if tan is greater than 0, that means it's positive, and if sine is less than 0, that means it's negative. So which quadrant has a positive tangent and a negative sine? Well, the only quadrant where only tan is positive is the T, all students take. So that's the third quadrant. Remember, it's all students take calculus, okay? And that's what you're going to do here. In the next two sections, you're going to be given a graph and you have to find the midline and amplitude. Midline you get by looking at the middle of the graph. So see where my arrow is going across the middle? That crosses at 2. So the midline is an equation and it crosses the y-axis, so it's y equals 2. Okay. Now the amplitude goes from the middle to the top. So you would say from here, from the 2, it goes up 1 space to get to 3. So the amplitude would be 1. Let's look at one more. Okay, great. So we have to find the midline. This one's not quite as easy to see. So if you can't quite see it, one thing is you can look for those points wherever it crosses nicely. Another way is you can say, all right, the top is 5, the bottom is -3. What's halfway between -3 and 5? Oh, well, all right, that's 8 spaces apart, so it's going to be 4 away. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it's right here at 1. Okay, so the midline is y equals 1, and the amplitude goes from here, and then it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so the amplitude is 4. Okay, I want to show you a couple things about the trig graph discovery. You're going to be doing a bunch of these here. So one little note about it is that you can put in a number here and hit enter to see what happens. So like, let's say I was like, oh, it looks like the middle of the graph is shifted up a little bit. So if I put a 1 here and then I hit enter, and it moves it up so I could just see. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Now it looks like my amplitude is maybe 5. So I put in 5 and I hit enter. Or you can hit try. I can see that the whole thing looks good, but it's shifted up 1 too many. So this should not be 1. It should be 0. Now, this is the only hard part. You have to find one full cycle. So I'm just going to get rid of this so that it's easy to look at. So from the dotted graph, I start on the y-axis, and I'm going to go full cycle till I get back to where I started. So I started at the top, I'm ending at the top. I look at the number on the x-axis, and that is at 6 pi. Okay, so again, one full cycle, boom. Okay, 6 pi is right there, and that means that I do 2 pi over 6 pi. Simplify that, and it becomes 1/3. That's the number I have to type in right here. Okay, then again, we found out that that was 5, and that's how you make it match. The next section is determining min and max from the trig equation. So if you picture the graph, right, you would go to this number first, the midline. So if you had the graph right here, you would sketch in the midline at -3. From that midline, you'd be going up 2 and down 2 to find, because the amplitude is 2. So from the midline of -3, you'd be going up 2 and down 2. Well, what's a quick way I can do that? I can just take my midline number and I can add 2 and subtract 2. So from -3, if I go up 2, I get to -1. And if I go down 2, I get to -5. Remember that minimum is the lowest, maximum is the highest. Yep, and that's all you have to do for these guys. That's it. Lastly, the multiple choice ones. There is a penalty. Do not just go through and click. You have to pay attention to 3 things. First thing is your midline. Here they're all the same and they're all at -40. Okay, so that doesn't help us. Next is your amplitude. 2 things you want to pay attention to. Is it positive and what is the amplitude? So from -40 up to 10, that went up 50 spaces. So I know it's a 50. And since it from the midline it went up first, I know it's positive. So it's got to be one of the first 2 answers. I can eliminate the last 2. The next thing I want to check is if it's sine or cosine. So if it starts at the midline, it's sine. If it starts at the amplitude, it's cosine. This one is a sine. Last thing I want to do, trace 1 period so that you end back where you started. So that would be right here. Okay. And that's at 200. So you do 2 pi over 200 and simplify that to pi over 100. And that is how you would choose your equation. Okay. If you just skip through, you will lose points. So here we look at the midline. The midline's up here at 20. So I know automatically I can eliminate some of these answers. So it's 1 or 3. The amplitude goes from 20 to 60, so that's 40. So the amplitude is positive 40 because it goes up first. Oh, they're the same. They're both sine, so we know it starts at the midline, so that's sine. But the period is different. So I trace 1 full cycle, up, down, and back to where I started, and that's at 80. So 2 pi over 80 simplifies to pi over 40, and that's how you would choose your answers. That's what you're going to be practicing this week. And then on Wednesday, I will be posting the art project that you're going to be working on for next week. It's been real. Have fun.